God of War first launched in 2005 for the PlayStation 2 and quickly became one of the console's most important exclusive titles. I first played it about a year later, buying it on a whim while shopping at GameStop. My original copy came in a blank case, since at that time my local GameStop didn't insert their generic cover art in used games. From the moment I popped it in until I watched the closing credits, I knew that I was playing something special. In late 2009, God of War and God of War 2 received an HD treatment for the God of War collection. As part of my play-to-win initiative on GameTaffy.com, I gave God of War HD a chance. While some parts of God of War did not age gracefully, I can begin this old game review by firmly stating that this is how you should start a franchise. Play to Win started because I had well over 100 games in my collection that I had not beaten or even played. And while I finished God of War and God of War 2 on the PS2, I had the God of War collection sitting dormant in my PS3 library. For all of the Play to Win games on the list, the first thing I look for is whether or not the game is fun. God of War HD earns a mostly yes. Many elements of the game are eternal because they borrow from other timeless gameplay mechanics. While it wasn't the first of its kind, God of War was the first great 3D beat-em-up I played. It was as fluid as arcade classics like Turtles in Time, but it took advantage of its cinematic camera angles and created a unique and powerful experience. But it had one flaw, a blemish that haunts the game today and sucks me out of the experience immediately. QuickTime events. QuickTime events are fine in principle. Players still control the action, but the developers show off some excellent move or event that they couldn't pull off with traditional controls. However, God of War relies on gimmicks. It's one thing to ask me to press X, square, circle, and X again to kill a boss, and I'll even forgive tasking me with rotating the analog sticks. But when a game forces me to mash a button as quickly as I can, I get angry. I'm not as young as I once was. I can't use the seizure finger like I did in 2006. And frankly, the R2 button on the PS3 controller is far harder to seizure finger than the R2 on the PS2 controller. Fortunately, the game has plenty of puzzles, enemies, and challenges to suck me back into the experience and forgive it of its sinful QuickTime events.
The gods of Olympus have abandoned me.
God of War HD features the exact same story of God of War, no surprise there. What is surprising is the fact that it still resonates. Granted, I haven't played the game for 7 years, and I only played it once then. I'm not as burnt out on the story as someone who may have played it many times. When I first played God of War, its Greek-inspired tale of a man battling a god scratched an itch that I didn't even know I had. Today, while I know the story, I love the fact that it is a complete story with hints at future tales. God of War is a Star Wars of video games. Now let me explain. Star Wars was an epic tale that ended with the destruction of the Death Star and salvation of the rebels, but the Empire was still out there and Vader got away. Any obsessive fan would know that there was lots more story to tell. But if the movie was a commercial failure, it stood alone as a complete movie with a beginning, middle, and end. God of War does that in video game form. Towards the end of Pandora's Temple, you see a portrait on the floor, and the game prompts that this picture shows a man fighting Zeus, a prophecy of things to come. If God of War failed as a game, and if it never received a sequel, some obsessive fans would imagine what that could mean. But anyone playing the game would have a complete story to enjoy. God of War HD preserves the epic tale I fell in love with and reminds publishers that a franchise should be built on a single game at a time. I'm talking at you, Assassin's Creed 1. Visually, God of War HD is an eyesore. The developers smoothed the textures but didn't add detail. The full motion video is just as pretty as it was on the PlayStation 2, and the HD update succeeds in removing grainy textures. However, as you're playing, whenever there is an in-game cutscene, you get the same standard definition graphics of the original. It's pretty jarring to go from a beautiful high-definition game to a dusty standard definition video, especially on new TVs. The music is just as bombastic and powerful as ever, and the sound effects are impressive. Since I've played God of War 2 and Chains of Olympus, I know that the voice actors get much better, so in this game, the voice acting is flat. Sure, Kratos is rad when he's yelling at the gods, but when he tries to hit an emotional note, it gets ridiculous.
And if I am able to do this, to kill a god, then the visions, they will end?
Again, I only say this because the voice acting is dramatically better in the sequel. God of War HD reminded me of all the things I loved about the game when I originally played it. At times I felt bored, but at other moments I didn't want to stop. After 10 hours of playing, I finished the game with a sense of total euphoria. However, I don't know if I want to jump right back into Athens to try the game on God mode. As a collector's item, God of War and God of War HD are important pieces of gaming history, but you probably shouldn't play them more than once every 5 years. God of War HD is available on the PlayStation Network, in the God of War Collection, and the God of War Saga. If you don't own any other game in the series, God of War Saga is the best value for the dollar, and God of War HD is an experience that everyone should have. I'm Ben Davis, and I want to thank you for watching this old game review, brought to you by GameTaffy.com.